Pleasure to be here this evening to give an update on Macango. So just in summary, Macango is focused on rare earths, and rare earths, for those of you who don't know, it's a suite of 17 elements, but the key rare earths are neodymium and praseodymium, which go to make magnets, which are used in electric vehicles and wind turbines. So those are the key growth areas and a great outlook for the sector. Macango itself, we are focused on a project in Malawi, so that's the mining side of things. We're also evaluating a separation plant, and we're also looking at recycling, so mining, refining, and recycling. So just moving through to one of the key growth areas going forward for rare earths. Electric vehicles, clearly there's huge growth potential in the sector, and certainly with post-COVID stimulus initiatives and also increased focus on the green economy, we see electric vehicles becoming a major force, major growth area. And 90% of electric vehicles use a rare earth permanent magnet motor, so using neodymium and praseodymium in the motor. And with the anticipated growth in electric vehicles coming through, that will lead to a very substantial increase in demand for rare earths. And using some numbers from the Damas Intelligence, 275% increase in demand for rare earths, and that's neodymium and praseodymium. Similarly with wind power, so each 3 megawatt wind turbine uses around 1.7 tons of neodymium iron boron magnets. And we've seen recently some very significant announcements in the US on wind energy, in the UK on wind energy, also in the EU forecasting a 5 times increase in wind energy by 2030. Clearly that will lead to very significant growth in demand for rare earths. And that will lead to an anticipated supply-demand deficit. So even with increased production from existing producers in China and new production from rare earths outside China, there's a significant supply-demand deficit anticipated in rare earths, in particular for neodymium and praseodymium. And just to put this into context, a 16,000 ton NdPr oxide deficit in 2030, that compares, we're looking to produce around 2,000 tons a year. So plenty of room for new entrants, and this is a significant growth market going forward. And this supply-demand deficit and the fact that there's very few advanced stage rare earth projects outside China has meant various governments have highlighted rare earths as having supply risk and a significant need to diversify supply. So this chart here is from the EU, and basically rare earths are at the top of the list in terms of supply risk, higher than lithium, for example, which is lower down the list. So Macango itself, as I mentioned before, we're focused on the Songwe Hill rare earth project. It's one of the few advanced stage rare earth projects globally. We've been working on this project and advancing it since 2010. And we completed a pre-feasibility study in 2015, and we're now completing a bankable feasibility study, which will be completed this year. And that has been funded by a strategic partner, Talaxis. We're working in Malawi, great place to work. We've been working there for over 10 years, stable jurisdiction. What's interesting, there's a lot of infrastructure developments happening in the country. There's a new railway line, upgraded road network, and also power developments. Very strong focus on ESG. I'd say corporate social responsibility is really integral to our vision. We've got a very good track record in Malawi, very good reputation, for best practice in the country. The recycling element to the company is through a company called Magnito, which has an interest in a University of Birmingham spin-out called Hypermag, which is focused on rare earth magnet recycling. So that's a very interesting. At the moment, only about less than 5% of rare earth magnets are recycled from end-of-life components. And if you compare that to the platinum sector or steel or other sectors, it's around 25–30%. So clearly a very significant growth potential there, particularly given that supply risk I mentioned earlier. We're also evaluating options for rare earth separation. So we have scoping studies in an advanced stage, and we're looking at various locations in Europe, and due diligence on that is nearing completion. So we will be announcing that in due course. We also have a very extensive exploration portfolio in Malawi, including a recent rutile discovery. And rutile is one of those commodities. There's very few large-scale natural rutile deposits out there, so it's highly strategic, and we've had a lot of interest from potential JV partners on that project. So that's the company in summary. Just a corporate snapshot. As at September, we had about $5.8 million US consolidated cash position. Tightly held shareholder structure. Major shareholders, Talaxis, our strategic investor, in addition to RESOC, a UK resources fund. Leominex is the predecessor to Macango, where the founding directors have their interest. Derek Linfield, our chairman, has a 3.8% interest. So good shareholder base, tightly held stock, no warrants outstanding, market cap around £25 million, and strong share price performance recently. We've seen rare earth prices on an upward trend in recent months, which is very positive. In terms of the board, we have an experienced international board. Myself and Alex Lemon, we co-founded the company, so technically led executive team, long-standing relationships with the government, and importantly, continuity of relationships. So we've got a 12-year track record in Malawi. Derek Linford, our chairman, a lot of experience in cross-border transactions in Africa. Susan Muir, based in Canada, former IR for Barrick Gold. So she spearheads our IR in Canada, in North America. We're a dual listed company, so we're listed in Canada and on AIM as well. Sean Tracy, long-standing experience in corporate finance. And Adrian Reynolds was part of the Randgold Resources team, which is one of Africa's most successful companies going from exploration to production. We also have a very strong technical team in terms of rare earths, and we're working with groups who have developed rare earth projects and rare earth separation in the past, which is obviously critical for a project like this. Talaxis have invested £13 million to date, so £12 million at the asset level, so in the project for a 49% interest, with an option to increase to 75%, in which case Macango would have a free carried interest to production. And Talaxis also invested £1 million in Magnito, which is focused on recycling. In terms of the project itself, we've taken it from an early stage. So since securing the license in 2010, we've completed 3 rounds of drilling. The last one in 2019. Very significant increase in resource, and that'll support a long mine life. And as for the next slide, the pre-feasibility study was based on this is a plan view of the footprint of the resource. So the pre-feasibility study was based on this resource, 2012, 345 million NPV, 216 million capex, IRR 37%. This will be updated as part of the ongoing feasibility study, and you can see we have a larger resource to work with. a significant measured resource, which means more drilling is being completed, it's better defined, and a bigger footprint for that resource. Malawi, I mentioned, it's a great place to work. We've been working there for 12 years. Very supportive government, a rare earth mineral province, and that infrastructure is unlocking that mineral potential. So there's a new railway line which runs from Tete province in Tete in Mozambique through Malawi out to a deep water port. So we will utilize that railway line. And that is unlocking the mineral potential of southern Malawi. There's also other infrastructure developments in the region. So very positive for the country, very positive for Makango as well. Just zooming in on the site itself, this is Blantyre. So that's the commercial center of Malawi. There's an international airport, so it's 2 hours drive from Johannesburg. We can drive to the site. It takes about an hour and a half, mainly on paved roads. The last sort of 10 k's is gravel dirt roads. So we will bring in reagents along the railway line, truck them to site, process the rare earth ore, and export a high value product. So that infrastructure is key, and that gives us a real competitive advantage. We're looking to use renewable power as much as possible. And so we're looking at a solar plus supplemented with grid. Malawi is very fortunate to have hydropower. So it'll be solar, hydropower off the grid, and then there'll be some co-generation of power from a sulfuric acid plant. So as much as possible, we utilize renewable energy. Long-standing relationships with the local communities and a number of projects right from the start of the project. So sort of modest cost but high impact projects focused on education, for example, painting the syllabus on the classroom walls. That's been very successful. Also a school meals program feeding 2,000 students a day. Bringing more students into the classrooms and increasing education. Got a scholarship program, and also upgrading the local road networks and boreholes, etc. So that's our operations in Malawi. Magneto is the company we set up to focus on downstream technologies. So our view is that, you know, in the new mining world, as it were, you shouldn't only be looking at primary production, you should also be looking at recycling. So it goes hand in hand, and recycling is one of the key sort of focuses for us. We invested in a University of Birmingham spin-out called Hypromag, and so we have a 25% interest in that company with an option to increase that interest. Hypromag has licensed a process from University of Birmingham to extract and demagnetize rare earth magnets from scrap, which can then be reused to remake magnets. Very strong network. Already announced 2 grant-funded projects from the UK government. Very strong partners. Bentley Motors is one of the partners, Unipart, Advanced Electrical Machines, and that's focused on taking using a recycled magnet and designing ancillary motors around a recycled magnet, which will be produced by Hypromag. And also a project recycling magnets from speakers, and that is a big part of the neodymium iron boron market. Also partnering with a major recycling company, European Metal Recycling. Very strong team in Hypromag, and Professor Rex Harris, he invented hydrogen decrepitation, which is used magnet making worldwide. He was former head of the Magnetic Materials Group at University of Birmingham. Alan Walton's the current head. Dave Kennedy, he's set up Less Common Metals, which is the UK's only rare earth alloy producer. John Spate, lots of industry experience. So a very strong team, operating team led by Nick Mann. And you can see the range of partners here, which I've mentioned. The focus of this recycling is this end of the supply chain. So whilst a project in Makango is focused, in Malawi is focused on the mining, beneficiation, chemical processing, we're also looking at a separation plant to do the solvent extraction. So Hypermag will focus on this area. So that's taking magnets, recycling them, remaking magnets. So at the moment, most components are not designed for recycling. So for example, if you try and shred a component with a very strong neodymium iron boron magnet in it, it's just going to stick to everything. So products are not designed with recycling in mind. And what this technology does, and it's a hydrogen-based technology, is it breaks down that neodymium magnet in situ. It demagnetizes it, and it creates a powder. So just to give you an example of this, this is from a hard disk drive. This magnet, you can see the hydrogen reacting with that magnet, it demagnetizes it, forms a powder, and that means you can extract that powder and then remake a magnet. So Hypermag has the IP license from University of Birmingham, and it will play a key role in unlocking the rare earth magnet supply chain for recycling. We have a site identified. It's just outside Birmingham, the Tyseley Energy Park. So over time, the facilities will be shifted from University of Birmingham to Tyseley Energy Park. There's hydrogen production on site, also a waste to energy park, and strong connection with Birmingham University. So just in summary, we're strategically positioned not only in mining, but also in refining and also in recycling. One of very few rare earth projects outside China, partnership with Talaxis, feasibility study underway, so it's an advanced stage project, and we're looking to complete a bankable feasibility study later this year. And we also have, through Magneto, this downstream technology business, which really differentiates us from everyone else in the rare earth sector. And this is against the backdrop of very significant rare earth demand driven by electric vehicles, wind turbines, and growth in that sector. So thank you very much, and very happy to answer any questions.
Just come back up on screen here. Okay, and thank you for the questions sent in so far. Please do carry on sending them in. Okay, to kick us off, how rare are rare earth elements? And putting this together, another question, where else are rare earths to be found in the world other than China?
So I think what is rare in the case of rare earths, certain rare earths are rarer than others. So cerium is a very common rare earth, which trades at a low value. Neodymium and praseodymium, because of that demand growth coming through, because of that supply risk, I'd say those are the rare earths which everyone are looking for. In addition to dysprosium and terbium, which are heavy rare earths. So what is rare is finding economic quantities of rare earths and at an advanced stage of development, because it takes time to develop a rare earth project. It's not like a gold project or a base metals deposit. Each project needs a bespoke processing flow sheet to be developed. So that's why there are so very few advanced stage rare earth projects outside China. The main producers at the moment is China, and there is a major rare earth mine in Australia, Lynas Corporation, and also Mountain Pass in the US, but that concentrate gets sent to China, so that's where all the processing capacity is.
Okay, and you spoke there about the kind of the long timelines on these things, and there's been a few questions asked about the pace of development. I think you mentioned that 10 years or 12 years since you've been at Songwe Hill. That feels, I think, some of the questions, it feels quite a long time. Is that normal for this? Can you comment on that at all?
Look, I think with a rare earth project, to go to a downstream product, either a carbonate or an oxide, it takes time to get there. And I think for us, we completed the pre-feasibility study in 2015, and following Talaxis coming in as a strategic partner, we reviewed that pre-feasibility study, and we saw a lot of opportunity to lower costs and simplify and improve the processing flow sheet. So we expanded the resource by 60%. Clearly, that is required a drilling campaign. That'll mean a lower strip ratio. And then we are working with a number of groups in Australia and to simplify and develop a lower cost flow sheet. And in reality, rare earths, it's all about where you're on the cost curve. Can you produce cheaper than anyone else? And I'm confident we will have be a low cost producer, and that has really been the goal of all the work that's been completed over the last 10 years, because that's essential to be able to compete in this sector.
Thank you. And a number of questions asking about timelines for first revenues and first production. Can you talk to that a bit, please?
So we're looking at following completion of the bankable feasibility study. If we assume 18 months construction, then that would mean first production in 2023.
And then the next questions are around the cash position, which I think you did cover, but if you could remind us of that, and whether that takes you all the way to the end of that bankable pre-feasibility study, or would there be any need to raise further cash?
We are currently not looking to raise any further funds. The agreement we have with Talactis, they invested £12 million to fund the feasibility study. So we're not looking to do a fundraising at the moment.
And a question here, how do you compare to Rainbow Rare Earths? Are they a direct competitor of yours?
So Rainbow Rare Earths, they're producing a mineral concentrate, as I understand it. And pretty much, I think the only place you can sell a mineral concentrate is in China. So we have a different strategy in that we are not only looking to produce a rare earth carbonate, which is one step downstream from producing a mineral concentrate. It's much higher value and it gives you much more marketing flexibility. And then we're also looking at going one step further downstream to produce NdPr oxide. And again, that provides even more marketing flexibility, even more value added. So different strategy, we will have significantly increased marketing flexibility. So we will look to be marketing rare earths into Asia, Europe, and the US. And in order to do that, to get that flexibility and to get that added value, you need to go further downstream.
I had a question here. What's the tax arrangement in Malawi? So in Malawi, and can you also mention the proximity to population for Songwe Hill? Are there people living locally? Will you have to build facilities for construction and for operation?
So tax rate in Malawi is 30%. In terms of the local population, there's no one living on the mine site itself. There are villages in the in the surrounding area. As I say, we're about an hour and a half drive from Blantyre, which is the largest commercial centre in Malawi, and we're 2 hours flight from South Africa. So clearly, we will seek to have as high a proportion of local staff as possible, and we will make commitments on that from that perspective as part of the development agreement.
And do you have an estimate, on the sort of capex required to get to production? Do you have a figure range for what you think you will need?
So even right from the beginning of the project, we've always targeted a modest level of capex. We think that's very important in a fairly small sector like rare earths. So the capex for the pre-feasibility study was $216 million US. That is for the operations in Malawi, comprising a mine, mill, concentrator, and hydromet plant. And we're targeting a similar level of capex, but in reality, it's subject to completion of the feasibility study. That's work in process at the moment. And on top of that, if we go the route of a separation plant, there'll be additional capex for that separation plant.
And the final questions were one for me, if you don't mind. I was speaking recently with colleagues about the rise of ESG funds and the money we see going into ESG funds. Am I right in saying ESG funds, they look at rare earths? This can be part of their underlying investment portfolio. Have you spoken to any of those sort of guys?
Look, I think whatever sector it is in the mining, I mean, ESG is obviously absolutely critical. I think in reality, it's not really, for us, we've been doing it right from the beginning of the project. In any case, sort of community projects, it is becoming increasingly important, and we are putting an increasing focus on it. In terms of marketing to ESG funds, yes, that would be a part of the marketing strategy.
All right, lovely. Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening, first one of 2021. So thank you.